All right, everybody, welcome to this first edition of NASCAR by the Numbers. It is I. I'm the usual host of the Below the Line podcast, Velocity, along with our founder, World Race Media, NASCAR Opinion.
What's going on, guys? It's kind of hitting me that today really is the day. Today's the day that matters. You know, the 26 weeks is behind us. The regular season's gone. Today, this is what it's all, this is what everybody's worked for all year. Today, you have a flat tire, you have a problem, you get involved with a crash, it has real implications. It's not a guy that was locked in the first few weeks of the season and he can just skate through the regular season. It matters today, and that's what's important. Every game matters, or every race matters, rather. And every point matters, and that's one thing I'm really excited about for today.
All right, so we got some stuff to talk about. We're going to preview Las Vegas. We're going to give you our race predictions, and then we're going to talk about why each NASCAR driver they can or cannot win the championship. Just give our thoughts on that stuff. So let's get into it.
Well, yeah, first, just want to say, everybody, thank you for coming in. NASCAR by the Numbers is an idea me and Armani have kind of jumped around for a couple of weeks. Just something to, it's playoff time. We need to be talking about it, need to be able to focus in on it. Those guys do a great job with shows during the week. So pretty much what we're going to try to do is every single week, we're going to try to sit there and kind of make some predictions about the race, or if in a situation like next week, which we'll talk about in a second, where the show will be after the race, we'll kind of talk about the race, discuss what we saw, and kind of talk about that kind of situation, what the playoffs are looking like. But pretty much it's just going to be a nice, 30, 40-minute show every week if we can hopefully keep it to that. And we'll just kind of talk playoffs, talk what's going on, make race day predictions, and just, talk NASCAR. So, but yes, definitely previewing Las Vegas. So today we have the South Point 400, 267 laps, 400 miles. Green flag supposed to be about 7:16 tonight, Eastern Standard Time. So I'm going to enjoy an evening race because I've had all day to do nothing. But I'm sure the folks out in Vegas, I wish, and I talked about this with someone else, I kind of wish this race was last night because I think the folks out in Vegas deserve a real night race. I think it would have been cool if, NASCAR pretty much kisses the ring of the East Coast all year long. One weekend, just say, listen, the race is going to start at 9 o'clock Eastern Time on the East Coast. And then this is, we're going to have a real night race out west. It would have made the race a lot better. We've seen this package. Under the lights, it performs. Today, I don't think we're going to we might get into a little bit of dusk there because it's 4 p.m. their time. Race probably 3.5 hours. At 7:30, it's going to start getting darker, but I don't think it's going to be enough to really make these cars go wild like we've seen at night races. So, what are your kind of thoughts on this kind of being an evening race? I would have preferred it to be a night race, but obviously NASCAR had some different things in mind.
All right, so I think this race is going to be very similar to Chicagoland. I'll get into that when we talk about like who to watch, who to pick, and all that stuff. But I think it's going to be very similar to Chicagoland. Obviously, it was different with Chicago because it got that rain delay, so that forced the race to go in tonight. So I think we're going to see that. We're going to see drivers who were good in the day, and then they're going to slowly fade off once the nighttime comes. Or we'll see some drivers that are good throughout, or we'll see some drivers that suck during the day, but they'll click it at night.
Right. And I mean, honestly, that's kind of race I think you want to see. You want to kind of see a couple of comers, a couple of goers. We're looking at tonight, the stages, 80 laps, 100, with the first stage into lap 80, then lap 160, and obviously down to 267. So obviously I haven't seen what the fuel window is, but obviously it's got to be shorter than that. If I had to guess, it's probably 40, 45 laps. I can't really remember.
I think so. I'm not 100% sure.
So there is going to be a little bit of pit strategy, but not a ton. At the end of the day, you're just going to have to pit. I think if we get a late caution, you can kind of see the typical strategy. And then I think the most the most kind of weird preview of this race is the pole sitter. You look at a guy like Clint Boyer, who people have said he's on a terrible streak, but at the end of the day, he's actually, I believe he's had 3 top 10s in a row. This is a guy that's been really, really quiet. And now this is what you want to do. You want to start off with a bang. This is huge to go ahead and have a pole. To start first, good pit selection, good starting position. This is something it's a game changer. Week 1, first pole of the playoffs. It's a big deal. So that's to me wonky just for the fact that Clint Boyer comes out of nowhere. I mean, you could probably name 9, 10, 11, if not another 15 drivers who are most likely to win the championship over Clint Boyer right now.
Oh, yeah.
And all of a sudden, he's going to start first today.
Yeah, I mean, the front row is actually pretty crazy when you think about, obviously Stewart-Haas 1 through 4, but like I said, Clint Boyer, he hasn't won a pole in 12 years. He goes out and he wins the first pole of the playoffs. And you got Daniel Suarez, who's not even in the playoffs. He's starting second. So you think like Kevin Harvick and Eric Almirola, they've been really the two best drivers of SHR all season. Maybe you can argue Eric Almirola and Clint Boyer because Eric Almirola has been really, really just poor since Daytona in July. But yeah, like to see that the 14 to 41 starting first and second, that's kind of crazy. At least for the Stewart-Haas lineup.
It definitely is a wild front row. Is going to be something to watch out for. And I think especially, I know me and you both later may have we have a non-playoff pick. You never know. Maybe a guy like Suarez who's starting up there, that could be that guy that we look at here soon. And today is going to be a big day for him because, I think a lot of people want him to prove himself. He didn't make the playoffs, which is a huge knock. There's no reason not to make the playoff in a Stewart-Haas car. He hasn't really flashed all year, especially the mistakes he made at Indianapolis that really put himself in a bad position. Really good starting position for him. I don't know if it's – I would assume it's probably his best starting position of the year. I don't think he's had any
he won the pole at Kentucky.
He did. He did win the pole. So, but still one of his better starts of the year. Good track position, good place to be. Could he be one of those guys that, we traditionally don't see non-playoff guys step up? Could he be one of those guys that does that? I think this could be a day where he really needs to start showing that he should be back in that car next year. So really interesting there. So obviously there, we kind of previewed the race. This is one of my favorite parts. I love making predictions. I know you guys love making predictions. Everybody loves listening to predictions. So I want to roll into it. What are some kind of predictions that you have for today's race?
All right, well, let's see here. Obviously the prediction we got the race winner. We got the ones to watch during the playoffs. Basically the ones that are going to lag behind and our non-playoff pick. So I'll start off with the non-playoff pick. I'm going to go with the wild card. I'm going to go with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. He finished 6th here at Las Vegas. The first time we went here, he's actually been fairly decent at the mile and a half. I think he got a top 12 finish at Kansas. Obviously, he finished 5th in the Coke 600. So Ricky Stenhouse Jr. I think is going to be the non-playoff driver to look out for today.
Yeah, my non-playoff driver, you're going to love this. My non-playoff driver, to me, it made common sense. To me, it was between two guys, and then I easily was able to eliminate one. Between Jimmy Johnson and Daniel Suarez. I still just don't think Daniel Suarez is ready to win. I think, again, he may be in a really good position, but I think we could see him make some sort of mistake throughout the day that puts himself in a bind. So I've got to go with a 7-time champion, Jimmy Johnson. That team has slowly picked up speed week in and week out. And how frustrating would it be, you as a Jimmy Johnson fan, that he missed the playoffs and he had 26 races where he needed to win, and then the very first week he could go out and win. Starts 8th today, has a 12th place average finish, which if he was in the playoffs would be a top half average finish for playoff drivers at Las Vegas. And he has 4 wins there. Now he's really backed off. He used to be one of the kings of Las Vegas, and he's really backed off the last 4 or 5 years. But Jimmy Johnson, to me, outside of the playoff guys, he makes the most sense. Some folks may want to say a guy like Matt DiBenedetto, but I think at tracks where you're pretty much holding it wide open, that team doesn't really suit well. It's about places where he can drive the car. So that kind of takes the 95 off the board for me. You can always throw as much hate as he can get. A guy like Paul Menard, who's been to a lot of these tracks, he's ran well at pretty much everywhere, at least at one point. I just don't think the Wood brothers are really going to do anything crazy this year at the end of the season. So Jimmy Johnson's got to be my pick. He makes the most sense from a non-playoff standpoint. I know that's pretty much, it's like an obvious non-playoff pick, and it's probably a pick you can almost pick every single week. Yeah. But Jimmy Johnson's a non-playoff guy.
All right, so there's our non-playoff drivers. Now let's go to the ones who are going to be lagging behind. I picked 3 of them. I think it's going to be Mark Truex Jr., Clint Boyer, and Ryan Newman. Ryan Newman and Clint Boyer, I think, are kind of obvious. I mean, Clint Boyer, he's never really been that flashy at Las Vegas. I don't remember where he finished in the Las Vegas race this year, but you don't really see him that far ahead in the mile and a halves. And Ryan Newman, the 6th car, the fact that they're in the playoffs, let's be honest, is a miracle. But they don't really have speed, especially during these night races. So, and Mark Truex Jr., he won the Coke 600, yes, but think he was really a non-factor at Kansas. He was a non-factor Chicagoland, non-factor Kentucky, and I'm thinking more like the transition from the day to the night races, and you haven't really seen Mark Truex Jr. And think about it, 2 years ago, he was the king of the mile and a halves, and now with this night I always say that there are certain drivers that excel at the mile and a half package at the night, and there's those that don't. Martin Truex Jr., in my opinion, are one of the ones that don't, despite him having a Coke 600 win early in the season.
So one thing I like is we actually have 3 completely different drivers. So the drivers on my list are Kevin Harvick, Chase Elliott, and Kurt Busch. And here's why. So some of those names are a little bit shocking. First, I'm going to start with Kevin Harvick. If you've looked, I believe actually the last 3 seasons, Kevin Harvick every year has at least one bad race in the first round. I believe it was 3 years ago. Might have been the race where I think 3 years ago he had won race 2, but he went into race 3 and had a really bad week. I can't remember the details of the. I know the last 2 years it's also happened. I don't remember all the details of it. I
2016,
know
he won Loudon. And
right.
then Dover, I think he had a bad race.
Yep, and I know 1 year, and this may have been his title year, may have been the year after, was when him and Jimmy Johnson got into it in the playoffs. Just Kevin Harvick every year seems to have some sort of issue in round 1. We've seen him have his back against the wall before, been able to point his way in, been able to win his way in. So that's why pretty much for the next 3 weeks, I'm going to have Kevin Harvick on alert, because it's one thing if it was just something that's happened 1 out of 3 or 4 years. It's happened every single year for the last 3 or 4 years. Kevin Harvick has at least one bad race. And I just have a weird feeling. The Stewart Haas cars have been on a roll this weekend. They're all fast. Someone of that group is going to have an issue. I just don't see all 4 of them running very, very well all day long. So that's why I have Kevin Harvick on a drivers to worry list. My next one is Chase Elliott, and here's why. Las Vegas is Chase Elliott's statistical second worst track that he's ran at on the NASCAR. They rank 1 through 24, and this is on, I believe, driveraverages.com. They rank him 1 through 24. This is 23rd on Chase Elliott's list. In 5 starts, he has just 2 top 20 finishes. Just remember that. Not top 10, top 20 finishes. So when it's 5 starts, he's only finished in the top half of the field twice. That's not a good thing to hear about. Obviously, this 9 car, I believe actually a couple of years ago he got wrecked in this race. There's been certain factors I'm sure that has happened. But the point is, Chase Elliott's not really a guy to watch today. Chevrolet's been a little bit lacking as of late. And just, Chase still has a small kind of resume when it comes to Las Vegas, but 5 races is a decent chunk to at least start looking at certain trends. And so far at Las Vegas, he trends down. And then the last guy to watch is Kurt Busch, hometown guy. And why? Why would you pick the hometown kid, one of the 2 hometown kids, to watch out for today? Because if you thought Chase Elliott had it bad, Kurt Busch has it worse. This is ranked 24th on his track list, dead last. This is statistically Kurt Busch's worst racetrack. And he has 1 top 20 finish in the last 4 starts. And this is a big deal because Kurt Busch has a decade and a half long resume when it comes to Las Vegas. He's never ran well there. He's never won there. That's something to watch out for. So that's why, Harvick, Chase Elliott, Kurt Busch, they're on my drivers to worry about list.
All right, so let's take a look at the playoff drivers that are actually going to be the ones to watch. And actually, they're kind of different from yours. I got Brad Keselowski, I got Alex Bowman, and I got Chase Elliott. If you find it very similar, it's very similar to the Kansas race earlier in the season. Because like I talked about before, their drivers, I think, excel at this mile-and-a-half package at the night. And I think we are going to get into the night into this race. I think with the playoffs, especially with drivers like Suarez and Johnson, they want to prove that they still belong. I think it is going to get kind of crazy. I think we might. Here's a little wild card. I think we have a red flag that puts it into the night. So that's a little prediction that I have. So I think we're going to get into the night. And those are 3 drivers I think excel the best. Alex Bowman, obviously, he won Chicagoland. Brad Keselowski, he won at Kansas. And Chase Elliott, he hasn't won a mile and a half this season, but he was very, very strong in all these races. I mean, I think at Charlotte, he was running top 5. Kansas, he was leading a lot of laps. Chicagoland, he was up there. So the 9 team knows how to work this mile and a half package at the night. And I think Hendrick in general, half of Hendrick knows how to do it. And I feel like the other half is 50-50. The 48 and the 24, I think, is like 50-50 on whether they're good at this at the night or not. I think the 24 is better when it's in the day. And like I said, the 9 and the 88, they excel when it comes to the night. So I think those 3 are going to be the ones to watch. Because I obviously got to take into recent trends, but then you also got to take into the fact of, okay, how does each drive perform with this package at the night? So that's how I'm seeing. I'm not really looking too much into past trend. I'm looking more to like, okay, what have we seen so far in 2019 with this package? And
that is a disclaimer. This is the first time we ran this package in this playoffs. So, things are going to be different. We can only go off of, past trends, but things will change with this aero package. So I have 2 guys on my drivers to watch list. Really, there was 3, but one of them was actually going to be my race winning prediction. So I'm going to save him for when we do that. So my 2 drivers to watch that I do not have winning is Joey Logano and Ryan Blaney. Simple fact, Team Penske continue. They seem to run well here every single year. You look at their average finishes. Joey Logano has the best average finish of any playoff driver here with an 8.5. And Ryan Blaney's a top 3 or 4 average finish with a 10.67. So both of them, for the most part, average a top 10 finish at Las Vegas. Obviously, Logano started probably about the double amount of starts as Ryan Blaney, if not more. But those are two drivers to watch. I don't necessarily think Blaney, which we'll get into when we say why or why not they can win the championship. I don't necessarily think Blaney's a guy that can make a run, but this is a place he can run well. He tends to always run well here at Vegas. Beginning of the year, end of the year, this is one of those places where you see Ryan Blaney running top 5 most of the day, and you're thinking, that kid's really, really good. Obviously, there's other weekends when he doesn't do that, but this is one of them. That's why I have both of those Penske drivers on my drivers to watch list.
All right, and we'll move on now to our prediction on who's going to win the race. So, actually, my pick to win the race actually comes out of the 3. It's actually Chase Elliott. I think that the 9 team, they're finally going to get it done here in Las Vegas. Chase Elliott, I mean, you can't keep sucking at a racetrack for that long. I mean, think about it. Jeff Gordon, when did he win Charlotte? 2007? Like, I don't think he finished the Charlotte race in like 3 or 4 years before then. So, Chase Elliott, I think he's going to follow the same trend. I think he's going to finally win at Las Vegas for his 3rd win of the season. He's going to prove why he's going to go into the next round, because I've actually seen a decent amount of predictions where they have Chase Elliott actually eliminated in the 1st round. So I don't have that. We'll get more into that later, but I think the 19, they're going to get it done in Vegas.
That's one thing that, obviously with my hat, you can hope that I hope that happens. If you can tell, it's a Napa Racing hat. But the guy I had winning the race is none other than Brad Keselowski. So Brad Keselowski, the reason I picked him is he actually leads all playoff drivers wins at Las Vegas with 3. I think Brad's been a guy that seems to have been a little quiet lately, obviously, besides his huge hit in Indianapolis. But he's a guy that seems to put stretches together. I know it was either last year or the year before. I believe it was last year. He started off the playoffs really, really strong, had a couple of really good races in a row. And he seems to always lately kind of be a quieter kind of win. It used to be a guy like Kevin Harvick. Now I think that's transitioned to Brad Keselowski to where he may not fully dominate the race, even though, we saw what happened in Martinsville earlier in the year where he did dominate the race. But he kind of, just quietly runs well and then wins the race. And then the race is over and you're thinking, well, there's got to be more laps left, but it's over. Brad Keselowski's won it. So I think it could be that kind of race today. And that's why I have Brad Keselowski winning. He got a 12.33 average finish here, one of the best in the playoffs. Got the most wins with 3. And I think he's a guy that people are sort of forgetting about. He's not one of the top picks to win the championship. So I think this is the perfect kind of situation, the perfect kind of race for him to win. And if he can take care of business, I mean, Brad Keselowski will go ahead and lock himself up and then move himself on.
All right. Oh, we got a couple here. Sorry if I butcher your name. Shikotu Kyushu says my prediction: Jimmy Johnson wins 2 playoff races. And
that would be that'd be a little shaking there. I mean, that'd be pretty cool. I mean, I'm into a point now. Jimmy Johnson used to be the nemesis to everybody, and now it's kind of like, it'd be cool to see the 48 win. At least for me, some people always, want to be against the 48, but it'd be cool to see Jimmy get it win. The place I'd really want him to win, and I've never ever wanted him to win here because he won so many freaking times, but it would just be a good story from his history. That would probably be Dover. Dover makes the most sense. I mean, it's just a place where he's ranked so well at. But I mean, hey, good luck to the Jimmy fans. I know you're one of them. I mean, I hope to see him run well. I think he will run well. I don't know if he'll necessarily win, but I wouldn't be surprised if that 48 magically, when it all is said and done, and the most important part of the season has finally started, he finally gets it together.
If Jimmy Johnson wins this, I don't know how I'd feel. I really don't know, because it's like, now it's when you want to win. You could have done it a week earlier.
Could have done it a week earlier. Could have raced for a championship. Who knows? Maybe could have won a race and transferred. And look at what happened in 2016. I mean, he was nowhere near as bad as he was this year, but he sort of lucked into a championship. He put himself in the right spot, won a race at Martinsville, which I happen to actually be at, and then goes out to Homestead and wins there. Yeah. I mean, you never know what could happen.
All right, so now let's take a look at so this is a segment that we want to get into. We're going to talk about why each NASCAR playoff driver will and will not win the championship this season. So let's take a look at this. Let's just nail out the 16 drivers that we got. We got Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Mark Truex Jr., JGR making up the top 3 in the standings. They got Kevin Harvick and Joey Logano, 2 Fords rounding out the top 5. Brad Keselowski, and then 3 Chevrolets, Chase Elliott, Kurt Busch, and Alex Bowman, 7th, 8th, and 9th. Then you got Eric Jones rounding out the top 10 in the JGR Toyota. Kyle Larson in 11th, Ryan Blaney in 12th, in the number 12. William Byron, this is below the cut line. William Byron 13th, and then you got a trio of Fords and Eric Almirola, Clint Boyer, and Ryan Newman.
So I figured on this just to explain everybody. I've done this before. I try to do this every year on some sort of platform. You can kind of list it as to why each driver will and will not win the championship, or in the same situation, why can each driver win it and why can each driver not win it. So I figured we'll start first because the first ones are kind of easy. But where we really our payday is really at the end of this grid, saying why can a guy that's sitting 15th in points win a championship or lose a championship? So I figure what we'll do is we'll start at the top. Me and I'll say mine, you say yours, and we'll move to the next driver. So the first one on here, points leader, regular season champion. To me, he's my championship pick. He's a lot of championship picks. He's probably the favorite to win the championship. Is none other than 2015 champion Kyle Busch. So the reason I have why he will win the championship is he's Kyle freaking Busch. He's Kyle Busch. He's going to run well. He's got so many playoff points. You might as well go ahead and put him in Homestead. Seriously, if you're making out your grid, go ahead and put him in Homestead. I'm going to go ahead and give you, I'm not even trying to think what it is. Paul Heyman in WWE says it's not a prediction, it's a spoiler. So unless something catastrophic happens, that's not a prediction. Put Kyle Busch at Homestead. And the reason he will not win the championship is one night only races, which is what Homestead is. Go out. You got 4 drivers. Go out and win it. Has not suited him lately. Since his 2015 championship, he's made it every other year. So he's made it 4 years consecutively to the Final Four. Since his title, he's finished 3rd, 2nd, and 4th, which lets you know he can make it there, but can he get it done when he doesn't have a point advantage? That's where I'm concerned for Kyle, and that's why I'm not 100% locked in that he's going to be the guy that gets crowned champion at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm going to go Kyle Busch to win the Kyle Busch win the champion. It's self-explanatory. I mean, 21 top 10s, most in the field. The only driver in the field, actually, to have multiple top 10s in the 20s. Tied for most top 5s this season with 13, along with Denny Hamlin, and in a 3-way tie for the most wins with 4. He's obviously got the most stage wins with 10, and he's got 45 bonus points. It's pretty easy. The reason I don't really have Kyle Busch win the championship is because that team, ever since Pocono, I mean, think about it, they haven't won since June in Pocono, number 1. Number 2, it seems like that team, either they don't have the pace to win or they got the pace to win, but they do something to screw them out of themselves of the title, or not title, of the win. I mean, think of Kentucky. He had the race-winning car, and then he got outdriven by his brother Kurt Busch. I think Loudon is another example where he led the most laps, and then he slammed the wall, and then he handed the win to Harvick. And like I said, it's either that or he doesn't have just race-winning pace. And like you said before about Homestead, I mean, like, Kyle Busch, in my opinion, he's not that much of a factor when it comes to, like, mile and a half at the night. I mean, he was really a non-factor at Kansas. I think he finished 30th that race. I don't remember seeing him as a real factor at Charlotte or Chicagoland either. And Kentucky's really the only example. Kentucky, if there's any playoff race that's similar to Kentucky, it's going to be Las Vegas. I think he'll maybe get like a top 5, top 10. So that's really why I don't have him winning the title. Because, like, yeah, he could do well throughout the entire season. But once it comes to the final race, he doesn't, like, the only time after 2015 I really see him, like, have a shot is 2017 when he was driving down Truex. Even then, Truex took his line and Kyle Busch couldn't do anything about it. 2016, he wasn't really a factor. 2018, he definitely wasn't a factor. So that's why I got Kyle Busch. I don't think he's winning the championship.
Right. And then the second driver you have on the list is Denny Hamlin. So Denny Hamlin, it's kind of another obvious. Why can he win it? For one, Denny Hamlin's a great race car driver. And 2, this is his best year since 2010. Everybody remembers the 2010 season, which is really a reason in my mind that I'll always kind of hold him back from winning a championship. He's kind of prove it to me, because I'll always remember 2010 and the pit road debacle and all this and stuff. Pretty much handed the championship to Jimmy Johnson. But it's his best year since 2010. It's been almost 10 years since that happened. That's mind-blowing enough. But, 9 years later, he sits there. He's won 4 or 5 races. He's won big races. He's consistently ran well, obviously second in the points. That 11 team is clicking right now. Joe Gibbs Racing is clicking right now. Makes a lot of sense. Why he will not, I think, is kind of that clutch gene. We've never really seen Denny in too many quote-unquote clutch situations. The one that we know of is, again, 2010, when he had the championship almost all but wrapped up, and they blew it. They lost it. And so Denny doesn't have the reputation of being able to be in a pressure-packed situation and getting the job done. So for that very reason, I have to say that would be why Denny Hamlin will not win the championship in 2019.
Well, I actually got Denny Hamlin winning the championship in 2019 for one reason only. I think that he's going to run well enough to make it to Miami, unless he pulls like a Kyle Larson in 2017. I think he will make it to Miami. I mean, The round of 16, I mean, self-explanatory. I mean, he's second in points unless, like he DNFs like 3 times in a row. He's making it. The round of 12, he's really in terms of the tracks in the round of 12, he runs decently at Kansas. He runs good at Dover. And Talladega, I think he's the best Toyota plate driver out there. He's always up at the front when it comes to these plate tracks of the Toyota drivers. And the Toyota drivers, we haven't really seen them up front at the plate tracks. And then obviously his best round is the round of 8. Obviously, 5 wins at Martinsville. He won Texas earlier in the season, and I think he could get it done at I think he has a decent shot also at Phoenix. Why have Denny Hamlin win the championship? Simply for the fact of, I won't say my Final Four yet, but I'd obviously have Denny Hamlin in my Final Four. Let's just say out of my Final Four, Denny Hamlin is the best at Homestead out of all of them. I mean, he's the only one there with multiple wins. He always runs well at Homestead. I think he won like 3 out of the last 4 poles at Homestead. And I think he won in 2015. Obviously, he won back-to-back in 17 and 18. So that's the main reason I have Denny Hamlin winning. Because if none of these drivers are particularly good at the mile and a half at the night. So then we got to get down to, okay, who's the best at Homestead in general? And to me, out of the 4 that I got, it's Denny Hamlin.
I got you. And I think this year, if Hamlin doesn't get it done this year, he's not going to ever be a Cup champion. This is really his second shot, his kind of redemption chance. I think if he gets it done now, I think he's pretty much done. Moving on, Martin Truex Jr. I think obviously, he's been a really quiet guy. Why he can win the championship and would be just his experience. He's been in this situation. I believe he's made it to Homestead multiple years now. Might be 2 or 3 years in a row now. He's made it to Homestead. He knows how to get there. I do have him making the Final Four. This is just a guy who has been in this situation time and time again. It's become the norm. He's got a solid amount of stage points that are going to keep him above the cut line. As long as they quietly take care of business, I think we're going to see the 19 team make it pretty far. And then the reason I would say that he will not win it is they've just been too quiet lately. I mean, I'm all for kind of being the kind of the quiet guy that sneaks in and has good runs, maybe wins a race here or there. But it just you almost forget that Martin Truex Jr. is even the 19th car anymore. You don't hear him getting talked about a ton. A lot of drivers are winning a lot more races. And, I mean, he was winning a ton of races the first part of the year, and he's kind of disappeared. And maybe they've just been experimenting with things. Obviously, I'm sure we'll see him win at least one playoff race. Maybe he'll start really picking up, turning up the heat. But for the most part, Truex has just been too quiet for me, and that's why I don't have him win the championship this year.
Yeah, I think one reason Martin Truex Jr. can win the championship is I'm very he can run well. I mean, he's fairly good at all these tracks in the playoffs. He won Las Vegas in 2017. He won Richmond early in the season, and the Roval, he probably would not have won that race if Jimmy Johnson didn't kamikaze him and himself last year. Dover, he's got multiple wins at. Talladega, I mean, the Toyotas are not really the best when it comes to the plate tracks. And then Kansas, obviously, he runs very well. He swept the Kansas races in 2017. Martinsville, he always runs well at. Texas, he runs decently at. So he does well at ISA. He runs well at all these tracks, including Homestead with his win in 2017. The reason I don't have him winning the championship is just like you said, the 19 is too quiet. I don't even have the 19 make the Final Four, in my opinion. I think they're too quiet. I think there's some drivers that are going to get hotter, and I also see that 19 car getting hotter. I mean, think about it. Last year, Truex, after Kentucky, Truex didn't have a win for the rest of the season. He made it to the Final Four solely on points, and he almost didn't make the round of 8. He only made it to the round of 8, I think, in 2018 by 6 or 7 points. So he almost missed out on the round of 12 2 out of the last 3 years because he did so in 2016 as well. And I think it's going to be the same thing this year in 2019. I just don't think that they're going to have the pace to make it to the Final Four. I think there's some drivers that are going to have the pace or just going to there's a couple picks that I have in there where in the Final Four. I have 2 or 3 that are going to make just off speed of points. I have one that is going to finesse his way into the Final Four.
Right. And if anybody's going to finesse their way, I think Truex can be that guy. They've just been too quiet. But with them being so quiet, they're almost due for a win. So I'm expecting that to happen. Next guy is going to be Kevin Harvick on the list. Kevin Harvick is kind of similar to Kyle Busch. The fact he's Kevin Harvick, he knows how to play this system. He's made it, I think, the last 3 or 4 years in a row. I mean, it's Kevin Harvick. And also, you look at that team. This team is one of the few teams I believe that can actually put a long stretch of good races together, and they've really started peaking lately. They got the win in Indy. They had the win a few weeks before that in New Hampshire. They've just started putting things together piece by piece. I think this is a dangerous team to watch out for. He's a guy that, to me, if I wasn't picking Kyle Busch to win it all, I probably would have picked Kevin Harvick. I know a lot of people are picking Kevin Harvick. He's not a bad pick. He's a really safe pick. So that's why the Ford car can definitely win a championship. My only concern and why he will not win it is, can he consistently beat Toyota? I do think Toyota is slowing down just a tad bit, but they've won like 20-some races this year. All the Gibbs guys have been very, very fast. That's something to take account of. And can the 4-car and Stuart Haas, who had been relatively quiet all year, he's been the only kind of guy that has really showed some sparks. He's finally won a couple of races. Can they step up and beat those guys on a consistent, 10-week basis? Even though this playoff system does allow, some deficiencies, you can have some bad races. If you can win, we know that 4-car can win. That's my only concern, is can they stay ahead of the Toyotas for the entire playoffs?
All right, so for Kevin Harvick, I'll actually give a spoiler alert. If you guys looked at our NASCAR by the Numbers preview stream last week, when we actually gave our predictions, I actually have Kevin Harvick out of the round of 12, because in the round of 12, there's always that one driver where, like, you think they're going to make, they look like they have a shot to make the homestead, and then boom, they're gone. 2016, you have Truex and Keselowski, for example. 2014, you had Dale Jr. 2015, you had Dale Jr. as well. 2017, you had Kyle Larson. 2018, you had Brad Keselowski. I think Kevin Harvick's going to be the same driver this year. He's going to suffer that, I guess that I'll call it the championship curse. You get eliminated in the round of 12. So that's the main reason why I don't have Harvick. Really no specific reason. Just I think that he's going to be that driver who's going to get hit by it. As for why he can win the championship, like you said, it's Kevin Harvick. They call him the closer. Kevin Harvick, he knows how to clutch. He knows. He won 3 races. Another thing I don't really see him making it is he's starting to get top 5 speed recently, but even then, it's like he only has like 9 top 5s in the season. I'm looking at it right now. He's got 3 wins, but only 9 top 5s and 17 top 10s. So I know obviously Kevin Harvick has the pace, but I don't know. I think that luck. I just think that championship curse is going to bite him this year.
Right. And to me, Harvick can definitely make a push, but that's what concerns me, is they haven't seemed to be the dominant 4-car we've seen in the past. So the next one on my list is our defending champion, Joey Logano. So I have a weird feeling about the 22. I have him going to the Final Four. I have a weird feeling that he could win it all. I don't know why. He's not my pick. I tend to stay away from picking a back-to-back champion. That's a big reason. And that's really the reason I do not have him winning it, is it's just statistics are against you. When you get to Homestead, if you make it to Homestead, you have a 25% chance of winning. We've seen no back-to-back champions so far since the format was unveiled in 2014. And that's why we actually have a group of 5 or 6 drivers that are all one-time champions. And I just don't see Logano breaking that mold and kind of spoiling the party by being the first guy to win back-to-back champions, is the most recent guy. You know what I mean? Yeah. But the reason I do have him definitely has a shot why he can win it is he just has that championship swagger. I think last year was really just it talked. Money talks, championship talks. And you have this feeling that Logano is now one of those guys that can get it done any year. He runs very well throughout the year. He wins every single year. He's got Penske behind him. That means they can win every single year. So Logano has to be a guy you have to consider. He's in my Final Four. I think he has everything it takes to win a championship. I just statistically don't think the numbers help him, and I don't think he can go back-to-back and become the first back-to-back champion in this format.
I actually have Joey Logano. I'm making the Final Four as well. And as for him winning the championship, I don't know why, but it feels like Penske. It feels like if any team is gonna like break a trend, it's got to be Team Penske. Actually, I look at 2018 as a primary example. People are like, "Oh, the 3 drivers that won 3 in a row: Brad Keselowski, Harvick, and Kyle Busch." Everyone's like, "Oh, Harvick could have won 4 in a row. Kyle Busch could have won 4 in a row." Actually, Brad Keselowski statistically has had the best shot at winning 4 in a row. Kevin Harvick, obviously, he wrecked out at Fontana. Kyle Busch, he wasn't going to win Talladega. And but Brad Keselowski, he was running like top 2, I believe, for most of the race at Richmond, and I think he would have had the race won if it wasn't for how bad his tires fall off got when Kyle Busch got to him. So obviously the trend wasn't broken, but it seems like Team Penske always has like the drivers or like just I guess like the know-how, or I can't really find the perfect term to use, to break a trend. And I think it's going to be the same. And I think it will be the same this year. I think if anyone has the best chance of breaking the trend is Joey Logano. I don't know why. I just have a weird feeling that like it seems like with each of like it seems like with each, because last year you can argue like none of the champions deserve the title. You can argue that Reddick didn't, Moffitt didn't, Logano did. And it seems like this year each driver's trying to prove why they deserve to at least be a champion. You got Reddick. He's got like more top 5s than Chris Rubella's top 10s. Brett Moffitt, he won like 4 playoff races in a row dating back to last year. And I think Joey Logano, he was the points leader for actually a decent amount of the regular season. So I mean, it's always been like him and Kyle Busch for most of the season before Denny Hamlin finally came along as well. So I think if anyone has the best shot to do it, it's Logano. I have him in my Final Four as well. So that's the main reason why I got him.
I like that point about the champions kind of proving themselves, because if you think about it, all three of them have kind of done that this year. They've definitely proved they weren't flukes. And then moving on is another guy that it's kind of a weird reason why I have that he can win the championship is Brad Keselowski. To me, he's almost due a second championship. To me, Brad is a guy that will one day win a second title. I'm not sure how. It seems like this format doesn't really fit him. But, he's almost one of those guys that's due a second title. He's one of the most consistent drivers on the schedule, which is ironic because of the point I'm about to make. When I mean consistent, I mean year in and year out, he's a threat to win races. He's a threat for a championship. What's the reason I have why he will not win the championship is actually his inconsistencies during the season stretch. They have them and the two team. They have some really, really weird stretches. You'll have 5-6 weeks in a row where they're world beaters, and you'll have 5 or 6 weeks in a row where you forget Brad Keselowski runs in the Cup Series. And it's really weird because they do this every year. You'll see wild stretches, then you won't. Last year, I almost could predict that he was peaking too early in the playoffs, and he eventually was knocked out early. They had won 3 out of 4 some races at some point, 3 in a row, something wild like that, like you were just talking about. And then within the next couple of weeks, they're eliminated out of the very next round. They're that kind of team. So that's why I also am not comfortable. I do not have him in my Final Four. I do not have him winning the championship. Brad Keselowski being Brad Keselowski gives him a shot. Obviously, Team Penske gives them a shot. But they're too inconsistent for my liking in the long run when it talks. They can win races, but can they consistently win races? And when they're not winning, can they put together good finishes? It can't just be win or wreck. You've got to also have some in between.
Yeah, one reason about Brad Keselowski, I mean, at the beginning of the season, you can argue he was the best driver along with him and Kyle Busch. I mean, he won Atlanta in dominating fashion. He won Martinsville in dominating fashion as well. I think he led all but 50, 60 laps at Martinsville of all places. So I think Brad Keselowski, I don't have him in my Final Four, but I think he has a decent shot at making the Final Four. I mean, he's one of the most talented drivers in the playoffs and just in the field in general. Why I don't have Keselowski making the Final Four is, like you said, about his inconsistency. If he doesn't have race-winning pace, he's finishing 15th or 16th. That's what it seems like. I mean, I'm looking at statistics right now. 26 starts in the season. He's got 3 wins, but he hasn't won since Kansas, which, by the way, most of the title favorites, when you think about it, minus Hamlin and Harvick, I mean, think about it. Kyle Busch hasn't won. Kyle Busch, Truex, Logano, and Keselowski, they haven't won at all during the NBC era part of the season. So I found that actually fairly interesting. But back to Keselowski, I mean, he's only got 9 top 5s and he only got 14 top 10s. That two team is too inconsistent. And I think that, I mean, he's got the second most laps led with 966 compared to Kyle Busch, who has the most with 1,166. But that 2 team is going to be too inconsistent. I don't think that they're going to get the playoff. I have said at the beginning of the season that qualifying is going to be more than ever. And I really think that was the main reason why Eric Jones was 18th for a good chunk of the season, was because his qualifying was so poor that he wouldn't really get stage points. He'd get decent finishes, but this lack of stage points is what hurt him at the beginning of the season. And that 2 team, they're not the best qualifiers in the world too. I mean, I know he's got 2 poles this season, but even then, he hasn't really been up there in qualifying. So I don't think that they're going to get the stage points. They're either going to have winning pace or they're going to be too inconsistent.
Right, and that's where I feel like it's just, to me, there's not enough middle for the 2 team, and that's something they've got to work on. So the next guy on my list is one of my favorite guys to talk about. He's obviously the hat that I'm wearing, and that is Chase Elliott. So the reason Chase Elliott can win it is because we have seen him in the last 2 years. They can win races. They don't have consistent winning speed, but when the time is right and things fall into kind of fall to their way, to their rhythm, they can win a race. This team is also kind of due a hot streak. We've seen that 9 team be very slow and have some bad luck the last couple of months. And it's really been a decently long stretch of maybe they'll finish 9th or 10th and score top 10, but they haven't had a really, really good race in a while. Besides, Watkins Glen. Watkins Glen was kind of an outlier. But you look prior to Watkins Glen, you look after Watkins Glen, the 9 team hadn't been too flashy. And so, I think this is a team that could get hot and string together some top 5s, top 10s. We've seen Chase Elliott do that time and time again, where 5 or 6 weeks in a row, he'll put together some really good finishes. He might score a win. Obviously, you look long distance in the playoffs. You've got Dover, one of the best racetracks on the circuit for him. You've got Talladega, where he's a threat every time they go. Those are things you have to think about as time goes on. But the reason I don't think the 9 team can win the championship is they're just not – I don't think Chase and that team are ready to be a champion just yet. And I think Chevrolet also hurts them. Chevy's not ready to make a title push. I'd be very shocked if a Chevrolet won the championship. It doesn't matter who it is. And he would be probably the Chevrolet favorite if there was one. I just don't think he's ready. I don't think Hendrick's ready, and I don't think Chevrolet's ready with the new Camaro to go after a championship.
Yeah, Chase Elliott, he's a fairly decent shot. I think if he's going to make any push, it's going to be during the round of 12. Obviously, I got him winning Las Vegas. But let's take a look at a couple tracks. Richmond, he's never really run that well at. He's got the runner finish at the spring race earlier in the year, but that's really all he's really done at Richmond. The Roval, I mean, you can't really say anything because we've only had 1 year, and even then, like the modifications, it's still fairly brand new. We still really don't know anything. Then you got the round of 12. The round of 12, he has 1 win at each track. I mean, he won at Dover and Kansas last year, and he won at Talladega. So the round of 12 is going to be Chase Elliott's strongest round. And then Martinsville in the round of 8, obviously. What I'm saying about these tracks, like these are the chances where Chase Elliott can accumulate playoff points. If Chase Elliott can accumulate a lot of playoff points during these rounds, then he could build a buffer to where he can make it to Homestead. And maybe he won't, because Texas and Phoenix, he's not the best at. I mean, Phoenix, he almost won in 2017, but he hasn't really done much at Phoenix ever since. I think he got a stage win in 2018, but even then, he wrecked out, and obviously Texas, he's not really the best at. So I think Chase Elliott, if he wants a shot to make it to Homestead, he's going to have to build a buffer with playoff points. And I think, obviously, I have him winning, so I think he's going to get the buffer with the 5 bonus points. And I think the round of 12 is really what's going to get him. I think he's going to run well at all 3 tracks, Talladega if he doesn't get wrecked. So I think if Chase Elliott can build a buffer with playoff points, I think he'll have a great shot to make the Final Four, even though I don't have him making the Final Four either.
Right. And then the next one we have a lot of times, really who we've discussed are the guys I really think has a shot, to be honest. So really moving forward, it'll probably be a little bit quick hits on why they can win and why they most likely are pretty much aren't going to win. But next, you got to look at Kurt Busch. He's a former champion. He's really I guess you could say he's the last guy I believe really has any ounce of opportunity, and even really, really not, just because I don't think Ganassi is ready to win a championship. I don't think they're in position to win one. But Kurt, to me, the schedule fits well for Kurt. Vegas reminds you a little bit about Kentucky when he was able to get their 1 win of the season. You have the Roval. He's a fairly solid road course driver. That also sets up a solid run for him. Talladega also helps him. Talladega he's a really good plate racer. He could put himself in a position to win the race. And then you look at really the round of 8. There's not a track there that really pops for Kurt Busch, but he's been to all these tracks. He's a guy that can run well there any given week, and that gives him at least an opportunity to make it to Homestead. And me and you've talked. If you can make it to Homestead, you've got a shot. It doesn't matter who you are. But at the end, in the long run, I think Kurt Busch is kind of past Kurt Busch's prime. I don't think he's a championship favorite anymore. I don't think Ganassi's got what it takes to win a championship, especially in this format when it's you have to win races. It can't just all be top 10s, top 15s. You've got to go win. I just don't think Ganassi has it.
All right, going into Kurt Busch. I mean, I've said 3 out of my 4 Final Four, and like I talked about before, like drivers I think driver that'll finesse their way into the Final Four, and I think it actually is going to be Kurt Busch. I got Kurt Busch being the 4th seed in the Final Fours because like we've seen that. I mean, that he's turned around that 1 car so much. I mean, the 1 car didn't make the playoffs last year. Obviously, we know with Jamie McMurray, and now they're top 10. And Kurt Busch, he was really strong at the beginning of the season. Let's take a look, couple tracks. Vegas, he finished top 5, I believe, at Vegas. Richmond, he's pretty solid at. And the Roval, obviously, we don't try to tell the Roval and Talladega trying to talk about because they're so unpredictable, especially the Roval. Dover, he can run fairly well at. Talladega, he always he qualifies well and he does well at the plate tracks. He just doesn't really win there. I just have a feeling about Kurt Busch where it's like, I just have a weird feeling that this is going to be the year that Kurt Busch makes it to the Final Four. I don't think he's going to win the championship. Obviously, I think I got Hamlin getting it, but I think this will be like Kurt Busch's last shot at least having a shot at the championship. Why I don't have Kurt Busch win the championship is like I just don't think that they're going to have the speed to keep up with any of the other big heavyweights.
Right. And then my next guy on here, I kind of used him as a bad example before the show started for you, is like There's really, out of the guys remaining, there's really only one guy I could see somehow winning the championship. So I just want to be clear about that. So the rest of these are kind of guys that we pretty much know for the most part aren't going to win the championship. We're going to make a case for why they have a shot, but more of the case is going to be why they won't. So the first one for me is Alex Bowman. The only reason I think he's got any opportunity is he does have Hendrick resources. The 48 car is not going to, is not involved in the playoffs, which means I'm sure they're going to be relying on Jimmy, his experience. What are some notes? Because that team still has been decently fast. That at least gives the 88 a chance. If he can, sneak up, win a race, great. That's huge for them. Hendrick horsepower can win races at times. But, why he's not going to, they're just not consistent enough. He doesn't have that championship kind of feel. If anybody from Chevy or Hendrick's going to win a championship, it's going to be Chase Elliott. It's not going to be Alex Bowman. Bowman's just not a championship threat. He hasn't matured enough to be a championship threat. I don't know if he ever will be a championship threat, but I do know in 2019 he's not one. So that's why he will not win the championship this year.
Yeah, any shot that Alex Bowman's got to make it to the into the Final Four, because I don't see any way he wins the championship unless he pulls a Tyler Reddick out of nowhere. Obviously he's got to rely on night races. He's got to rely on Las Vegas. Richmond, I think he finished like 21st there. I think he finished top 5 at the Roval. So I mean, like, he's gonna have to rely on these tracks that he does fairly well at, and he's got to hope that he does well at if he wants any shot to make the championship. Why have Alex Bowman not winning the championship? I mean, self-explanatory. Ever since his win at Chicagoland, he's only had one top 10. I mean, his season stats, I mean, like, they're fairly decent for Alex Bowman standard, but even then, like, when you think about it, it's like he hasn't really been doing that well as of late. He's got the win at Chicagoland, but he's only got four top 5, not bad, but he only has 7 top 10s on the season. He's got the least amount of top 10s out of any driver in the playoffs and the least amount of top 10s out of the top 10. And he's ranked 9th in points. He's got 5 playoff points, but I just don't see that. I think that 88, I think they're going to be even more consistent. And I think that inconsistency is going to bite him so hard that I got Alex Bowman out of the round of 16.
I can't remember where I had him, but I know he's out in the first couple of rounds for me. I believe I actually did have him out in the round of 16 as well. He doesn't really ooze a guy that can really make a run or any kind of run. He's just not ready. And like you said, that win at Chicago has really kind of made this year seem like it's been a great year for the 88 team. And it's been a solid year, but it really hasn't been great. I mean, he has the least amount of top 10s for everyone in the playoffs. Remember that. That includes guys like Ryan Newman. So just keep that noted as we move forward. Next guy on here, I did say there's one guy out of the remaining that I feel like could somehow make a run, and that would be Eric Jones. The only reason I give him a shot, I think Jones – I'm actually going to say why he's not going to win it for a second. I was about to start with that. Why he can win it is Gibbs horsepower. He has a Gibbs car. We've seen how fast Gibbs is all year long. I think he is building confidence. He had the biggest win of his racing career a couple of weeks ago in the Southern 500. I think he's the kind of guy that if he can build confidence, he can run well week in and week out. My problem with that is I believe he's peaked too early. He's had a string of 4 or 5 or 6 top 5s or top 10s, or at least prior to Indy he had. Can't remember where he finished in Indianapolis. But to me, he's peaked too early. I'm a huge proponent of momentum, but you've got to get the momentum at the right time. To me, he got it too early. He's just not matured enough, and he's not ready enough to win a championship, so that's why the 20 won't. But being in a Gibbs car always gives you a shot.
Yeah, Eric Jones, I actually have Eric Jones making it to the round of 8. I'd say Kevin Harvick's out of the round of 12. I think Eric Jones is going to take that place. I think it's going to be like 2016, where 4 out of the 8 round of 8 spots are JGR cars. And Eric Jones, he's a very, like, going back to drivers who need to prove themselves, I think Eric Jones is one of them. Obviously, like, I've said this a lot, where, like, ever since Hamlin won the 500, everyone just jumped onto Eric Jones to kick him out and put Christopher Bell in. At the beginning of the season, he was proving them right. I mean, he was like 18th in points for like a good chunk of the season. But as of now, he's been starting to pick it up. And I don't know why, but it's like Eric Jones, he'll have a hot streak, but he'll never fall off. I think the only time I've really seen him fall off was last year at the playoffs when he finished dead last at Las Vegas. And even then, like, I think he finished top 10 in both races, but it just wasn't enough. But Eric Jones, to me, is one of those drivers where, like, he'll have that streak, but he'll never just, like, fall off the face of the earth afterwards, like Chase Elliott did earlier in the season, or like Alex Bowman is doing it right now. So I think Eric Jones has a decent shot at winning the championship. Why I don't ever win the championship is his inexperience. I don't think he's experienced enough to be able to make a push for the championship and to win the championship. And like, I have him making it to the round of 8, but the only track that's really good for him, really in these playoffs, is Texas. He always runs top 5 at Texas, but every other track, like he's really a non-factor. So if Eric Jones wants a shot at it, he's gonna have to. I think he's gonna have to win Texas to make it to the Final Four, but I don't even see that happening. So Eric Jones, I don't. Obviously, he's the weakest link out of the JGR, but that's not saying much. I mean, he's performing really well at JGR. He's got 9 top 5s and 13 top 10s along with his win. So that's the main reason I don't have Eric Jones winning the championship. But I do think it's not completely out of the question, but it's highly, highly unlikely.
Right, and just to add to it, ever since his 4 races where he finished top 5 in a row, he finished 18th at Michigan, 22nd at Bristol, had the win at Darlington, finished 39th at Indianapolis. So it's not like they have a huge – they've kind of lost that momentum. Again, they peaked too early, in my opinion. Now they started kind of losing that momentum. It'd be interesting to see if they can get it back. Next guy is Kyle Larson. So the only shot Kyle Larson has a championship, it makes it to Homestead. We know, we've talked about it every year, what can happen. And even then, that's really kind of died down because this aero package – it ruins throttle play. Now, once they get a little bit further into the race and the speeds drop off at Homestead, we might get to see them be able to actually run the wall and control their destiny. But that's his only shot. If he can make it there, we know he can win at Homestead. He's given up past wins to let the championship guys race it out. But why he won't, he's too inconsistent and he can't win. And in addition to Ganassi, he just doesn't have what it takes. But too inconsistent for my liking. He still hasn't won a race this year. He's starting to slowly add himself to one of the more overrated drivers to the garage, and he's just not a championship guy.
Yeah, Kyle Larson, I don't see him. He's too inconsistent. I mean, he's got 6 DNFs on the season. He was as low as 21st in points at one time in the season. Obviously, that 2-month stretch where he just where Chase Elliott now, where he was just doing horrendous. And Kyle Larson, he's not a clutch driver. I mean, 2017. I mean, he hasn't won since 2017. He won 4 races, but that's about it. 2018, he didn't do that bad. 2018, he still had 12 top 5s, even though he didn't win. But obviously, this year, this aero package, it takes away a lot of his driving ability. Like you said, he's only got 12 top 10s on the season, and I just don't see Larson. He can't win. Like you said, he can't really win. Indianapolis, and if he has winning speed, he chokes it away. It's that plain and simple. I think Darlington is a good example. Indianapolis was a good example. And Chicago, and just so many races where Kyle Larson should have won, especially the last 2 years. He just finds a way to just choke it away. So if Kyle Larson is going to win it, like you said, win the title, he's got to make it to Homestead, but I don't need to see that happening at all.
Right, and that's my biggest issue, as I just don't think he can make it there. The next guy I really want to go in depth about, and then I think we'll kind of do the last 4 all together, is Ryan Blaney. So Ryan Blaney, again, similar to kind of the Eric Jones situation, he's in a Penske car. Obviously, Jones is with Gibbs, but the team that he's with gives him a shot. Keselowski and Logano are both some of the favorites to win the championship. Blaney's in the same equipment. But the problem I have with Blaney, and I've called Blaney out about this for years now, people seem to let it go right over their head. They don't see it. He's too inconsistent. With what kind of equipment he has, he does not win the races he should. He does not run as well as he should. And that's going to be another reason why this year he's going to be just another kind of bland playoff driver. He's going to be there. He looked into the win of the Roval last year, but he's not going to be flashy. He's just going to be a guy that's kind of there. He'll make it to the round of 12, maybe somehow squeak to the round of 8, most likely get eliminated after the round of 12, though. And then, he'll go on for another year, try to finish, win some races, but he's not going to be the champion this year.
Yeah, Ryan Blaney's too inconsistent. I mean, I think it's the definition of inconsistency. I mean, 2016, obviously his rookie season, he had 9 top 10s. I think that's it. 2017, the inconsistency was a lot in 2017 because he was in the sophomore season with the Wood brothers. And then last year, he actually had, a worse season with his first year of Penske than he did with the Wood brothers. Obviously, he won the Roval. But like I said, he lucked his way into that win. And even then, he finished 10th in the standings, I think, compared to his 9th with the Wood brothers. And he's just been too inconsistent this season. He's never really, besides Phoenix and ISM, and not ISM, that is Phoenix, Indianapolis, he hasn't really been a contender to win. He's got 7 top 5s and 12 top 10s on the season. And he's got 3 DNFs. So I don't see Blaney make. I actually have Blaine. He's my second driver eliminated out of the round of 16. It's just. He's just too inconsistent. And what I think is really going to do Ryan Blaney in is Richmond. He ran 25th at Richmond earlier this season. A Penske car running 25th at Richmond. And he's said countless of times, Richmond is probably his worst track. So I don't think he's gonna improve. I think he'll run like maybe like 20th at Richmond. And I think that's really gonna kill him in the play when it comes to make it to the round of six, advancing at all in the playoffs.
Right. And then I want to look at these last four. These last four to me are all similar. We'll kind of talk about all four together. We got William Byron, Eric Almirola, Clint Boyer, Ryan Newman. So William Byron, first I'm going to say why all of them can. So Byron can or has a shot just because he's in a Hendrick equipment. He's got Chad Knaus. Chad Knaus is worth points by himself. Chad Knaus at some point, I guarantee you in this first round, he's going to play some sort of strategy, could happen today, to try to put them in a position to score points. They roll the dice even in the regular season. I would fully expect them to do it now. Eric Almirola, he's at Stewart-Haas equipment. We saw what he did last year where he really didn't make a ton of noise. He eventually won a playoff race, and he made a push. And I think he was the first or second driver to out of the Final Four. He at least made some noise. Clint Boyer, people can hate on Clint Boyer. He's had a rough year, but he's actually started to bounce back. He's got a lot of experience. Stewart-Haas equipment. He's on the pole today. Can he take advantage of a day like today? Clint Boyer can string some solid runs together. I don't think it's enough to win a championship. We'll get to why not in here in a second. But Boyer has the experience, has the equipment. And then Ryan Newman. Ryan Newman made it to the Final Four in 2014 with RCR. Now, RCR was in a better situation now than what Roush is now, but we've seen how he's turned that car around. He can bulldoze his way through. He races tough every single week. This playoff suits his driving style, which is rough. I'm going to hit you. I'm going to smack you in the mouth. And that's exactly what he can do to put himself in a position. Now, the reason all four of these drivers won't, William Byron's not ready to win. He hasn't proven he can win yet. He's still too young. And Chad Knaus is huge, but Chad Knaus can't teach a driver how to win races. And, again, the Camaro is not ready to win multiple races yet. Eric Almirola, he's just been too quiet. He's really been what Eric Almirola is. Everyone tried to make Eric Almirola like he's going to be this championship guy. He's not that kind of guy. He's an upper middle race car driver in the series. I think what you've seen the last 2 years is what you get with him. He can win maybe a plate race, maybe one of these days he'll win a mile and a half, but he's not going to be able to take care of business enough to win a championship. Clint Boyer's just not going to be consistent enough. He started to turn the season around, but to me, Clint Boyer is a slightly better version of an Eric Almirola. Obviously, he's won 10 career cup races. He's just not a championship kind of guy. There's just guys in this series that are not championship caliber guys, and he's one I've said is not for multiple years. And then the last one is Ryan Newman. And it's not even a Ryan Newman's part. One, Ryan Newman's not a championship caliber driver. But two, it's Jack Roush. And Roush Fenway is not a championship team. Commend him. It's just an honor for them to make this playoffs. Where that car was last year to where it is now is huge. That should be a pat on the back as much as it is. They're the 16th worst team in the garage right now, or in the playoffs. They're the worst team in almost every category of where they, when they get eliminated in the first round, as they should, logically you have to knock them out. You don't even fault them. You're like, you know what? Applaud you guys for even making it. So Ryan Newman's not going to, win a championship just because he's not that kind of guy. You're not going to do it with that car.
Yeah, we'll just I'll go through them quickly too. Obviously, William Byron. I mean, if he's going to do it, it's going to be with Chad. I mean, if he's got a shot, it's because of Chad Knaus, 7-time champion, crew chief. And actually, people say that after Jimmy Johnson got eliminated, that nobody has made the playoffs every single year. Chad Knaus have made the playoffs every single year. I know he's not a driver, but that's just an interesting little fact. So, but yeah, William Byron, I mean, he could qualify well, and that's really important when it comes to scoring stage 1, maybe even stage 2 points, but they can't pull a full race together. I think he will make it to the round of 12, but I think that's as far as he's going to get. Eric Almirola, in my opinion, he's the third worst SHR car. He's only got one top 5 on the season, and that's in Phoenix. I get it, last year he peaked during the playoffs, but even then, he only got 10 top 10s and one top 5. I mean, if you can't finish on the top 5 more than once, I got Almirola out of the round of 16 as well. Clint Boyer, like you said, he's peaking really well in them. And these tracks are actually pretty good for him. He finished second here at Richmond earlier in the season. He's won multiple races at Richmond. Las Vegas, he's 50-50. I haven't really seen him do too well at Vegas. And the Roval's 50-50 as well. But the reason I don't Boyer win the championship, he's too quiet. He's too inconsistent. I don't think he's going to get the job done. He just doesn't really have the speed or the pace. And along with the fact that he's got 6 DNFs on the season, along with Larson, he's crashed a lot of cars. And on the flip side, he's got the second least amount of laps led, which the least amount of laps led is actually the 16th driver who has only led 16 laps in the season. That's Ryan Newman. It's the 6th car. It's Ryan Newman. He's only got 1 top 5 in the season, 9 top 10s. It's self-explanatory.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much like I said, Newman. I'm just happy that team was able to make it. I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do in round one. Like I told you, I think they can make it out of round one. But if they don't, I can't even blame them. I mean, this is probably the best playoff field we've had with this format. But at the end of the day, Newman. It's still Roush Fenway Racing.
Yeah.
So I guess there we have it.
All right, there it is. There's your first episode of NASCAR by the Numbers. Make sure to tune in next week at 11 a.m. We'll talk about instead of the preview, we'll be giving you the review of the Richmond playoff race and see where the drivers are heading after Richmond and see where they head out to the Roval. Actually, before we head off, we got a couple guests coming for tomorrow's episode of the Below the Yellow Line podcast. I just got informed. Armand Vizina and Diego Gonzalez will join the podcast tomorrow night. Car Culture will be featured. So tomorrow night at 6:30 p.m., obviously on the channel. So don't miss it out, folks. And tomorrow we'll get the recap of, obviously, the weekend. We'll talk about the Truck Series, talk about the Xfinity Series. Obviously, we'll talk about the Cup Series, along with all the other motorsports such as IMSA and Supercars.
Awesome. I appreciate everybody listening in. Like I said, it's going to be something we try next week. The other races on Saturday night will be Sunday morning at 11 a.m. We'll talk about Richmond. We'll probably preview the Roval a little bit, which we'll probably have another show before the Roval, so we won't get too much into that. But we'll look at where the playoff grid sits and everything, kind of discuss that. So appreciate everybody checking us out. This has been NASCAR by the Numbers. Make sure you check out Below the Yellow Line podcast tomorrow night. And hope everybody enjoys the race. I'm sure me and Armani will both be active live tweeting during the race. So keep us going. Let us know what you think about the show.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Obviously, follow us on Instagram at WR Media Group. Follow us on Instagram at World Racing Media. Follow us on Facebook at World Racing Media. Obviously, like, button, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we'll see you next week.
Let's do it.